A regulation World Cup pitch is wider than most NFL fields are even allowed to be. Not the length, the width. And that one mismatch is the reason crews are tearing up the insides of some of the most famous stadiums in America before a single ball gets kicked in 2026. It sounds like it should be simple. Rectangle of grass, rectangle of grass. But when FIFA measured these buildings, the math didn't work. So what exactly has to change? Here's the question this whole thing turns on. 11 stadiums across the United States are hosting matches in 2026, and almost all of them were built for the NFL. So why can't you just paint some lines, roll out a ball, and play? Why does FIFA send in teams to rebuild the floor of a building that already hosts 100,000 people? The answer is part geometry, part grass, and part a rule most fans have never heard of. Stick with me, because the width problem is only where it starts. Start with the field itself. An American football field is a fixed shape, 100 yards of play between the goal lines, plus 2 end zones, and a width of about 53 and a third yards from sideline to sideline. That number never changes. Every NFL stadium in the country is built tight around that exact rectangle, with seats and camera pits and team benches crowding right up to the edge. The building is designed to hug the field, and that's the trap. Because a soccer pitch refuses to be hugged, now lay a World Cup pitch on top of it. FIFA wants its biggest matches played on a surface around 115 yards long and about 74 yards wide. Length isn't the enemy here because NFL stadiums have all that end zone room to borrow. The width is. 74 yards of grass will not fit inside a building shaped for 53. The pitch spills past where the sideline seats sit, past the benches, into space that simply isn't there. So something has to give, and it's usually the seats. This is where the rebuilds begin. In a lot of these stadiums, the lower bowl of seats near the field is removable or gets covered, and crews claw back every inch of width they can. They push out the sidelines, drop the field level in some cases, and reshape the whole playing surface into a true rectangle wide enough for the game. It's expensive, slow, and it changes how the building feels, and yet the seating is honestly the easier half of the problem. The harder half is what you play on. Most modern NFL stadiums use artificial turf. It's tough, it drains fast, it survives a full season of huge bodies crashing into it, and it needs almost no water. Great for football. But FIFA rules the Men's World Cup on natural grass. Always has. The ball rolls differently, players cut differently, and the risk of injury changes on a hard synthetic surface. So a stadium that has never grown a blade of real grass indoors suddenly has to host the world's biggest tournament on a living lawn. How do you grow grass inside a dome? The answer is grass that gets built somewhere else. Growers raise the turf outdoors on farms and in fields, in trays or on huge pallets, where it gets real sun and real air for months. Then, close to match day, it's trucked in and laid down inside the stadium like the world's most expensive carpet. It has to be flat, level, and perfectly stitched together so a ball rolls true across every seam. Miss by a fraction, and a pass skips wrong on live television. But even that isn't the full challenge indoors. Grass is alive, and living things need light. A closed roof blocks the sun the grass grew up depending on. So crews wheel in giant lighting rigs that mimic sunlight, aimed at the pitch for hours a day to keep it green and firm. They watch moisture, they mow it to an exact height, and they manage airflow so it doesn't rot in a sealed building. All of this for grass that might only be needed for a few weeks. It's a farming project hidden inside a sports event, and it still has to survive a schedule. Because these venues don't stop being busy. A single World Cup stadium can host several matches in a short window, plus training sessions, plus everything else a giant arena books. Every match chews up the grass, so the surface has to hold together through heavy use, and in some cases, the plan is to swap sections or relay parts of it between games. The whole operation is timed to the day. You're growing, transporting, installing, lighting, and repairing a natural field on a clock that never really stops, and the finished pitch still has to pass one final test. FIFA inspects it. The pitch has to meet strict standards for hardness, bounce, grip, and how the ball rolls, because a World Cup can't be decided by a bad surface. Inspectors test how firm it is, how fast water drains, and whether the grass behaves the same in every corner. If the pitch fails, it gets fixed or relayed until it passes. This is the quiet turning point of the entire project, not the wide sight lines or the roof. It's a small crew on their knees, checking whether the grass is good enough for the planet to watch. And this is why the conversions matter so much. FIFA gave these matches to buildings that weren't designed for the sport, so the tournament reshaped the buildings instead. The width got widened, the turf got ripped for grass, and domes learned to grow lawns under artificial suns. It's one of the biggest field preparation efforts a World Cup has ever demanded, precisely because it's happening in stadiums built for a different game. If you find this kind of behind-the-curtain sports engineering as fascinating as I do, subscribe, because we take these apart every week. There's a legacy hiding in this too. Some of what these crews learn about growing and moving grass indoors doesn't disappear when the tournament ends. The techniques, the lighting, the trays and pallets, they carry forward into how big events are staged. And it settles an old argument. For years, people asked whether America's football stadiums could ever really host the world's game. The answer is yes, but only if you're willing to change the building from the seats to the soil. That says something about the difference between the two sports. Think about what each sport asks of its ground. American football is built around a fixed, narrow rectangle and a violent stop-start game, so a hard, durable, artificial surface makes sense. Soccer is a wide, flowing, rolling game, and the ball itself lives on the ground, so the surface has to be true and forgiving. The NFL optimized its stadiums for one shape and one feel. The World Cup shows up needing the opposite. That clash, wide grass against narrow turf, is the whole story in a single diagram. So when you watch a match in 2026 and the pitch looks perfect, remember what's underneath. Remove seats where fans once sat, grass grown on a farm and trucked in strip by strip, lights pretending to be the sun, a field that only exists because a whole building agreed to change its shape. That's the real reason an NFL stadium can't just become a World Cup venue overnight. Next, we're going into why some of these stadiums are being picked for the biggest matches and others aren't. That fight is quieter, and it's brutal,